Good day and good evening to everyone. Assalamu alaikum to all the online attendees. On behalf of Global CIO Forum, I welcome you to this BotTalk virtual web summit on the topic of the usage of AI in navigating the pandemic. This web summit is being held under the patronage of the Bahrain Shura Council and in association with the AI Society Bahrain. This platform, which you are now all logged into, which is the GCF Unite Web Summit, was conceived with an aim to address the current bottlenecks around thought leadership and how to manage the challenges raised by the pandemic. In the last 3 months, GCF Unite Web Summit has addressed critical topics, including role of leadership in business and technology, human performance management, indoor air quality and the pandemic, amongst others. Now, before I hand over to the moderator of the next 60 minutes, I'd like to just run through a few housekeeping rules with you. All attendees, all online attendees are on mute throughout the session, but we welcome your participation through the question and answer button, which you find on your panel. Please feel free to raise as many questions as you want with our illustrious speakers, and they'll be happy to answer all your questions at the end of the session. It's now my pleasure to introduce and call upon the moderator for the next 60 minutes, Mr. Khalid Jalal from GRMCO, who shall be a host for this web summit. Over to you, Khalid.
Thank you, Mr. Arun, for the introduction.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be with you, your MC for today, for the first virtual conference on artificial intelligence organized by the AI Society Bahrain and the GFC Dubai under the patronage of His Excellency Ali bin Saleh Al Saleh, Chairman of the Bahrain Shura Council. And I welcome you all to the first virtual conference. Let's officially start our session with the address from His Excellency Ali bin Saleh Al Saleh, Chairman of Shura Council Bahrain. Your Excellency. I think the technical team is having some issue playing the video. The address from His Excellency, we're just sorting it out. Please give us a minute. Thank you, Your Excellency, for the motivational and informational address. Yes, our conference is also in line with the vision of the Kingdom of Bahrain for the AI introduction in the kingdom. Now it's time to invite the chairman of this event, Dr. Jason Harji, who himself is an AI researcher and author on AI. Let's hear his address. Dr. Jason, floor is yours.
افتراضي أول مؤتمر افتراضي في الذكاء الاصطناعي في المنطقة. مؤتمر راح نحاول أن نغطي على عدة مجالات وعدة تطبيقات في مجال الذكاء الاصطناعي في ظل جائحة كورونا. طبعا اليوم راح نشوف عدد من المشاركين، مشاركة من الدكاترة الأكاديميين واخصائيين، منهم الشيخ خالد بن حمد الخليفه، دكتور الشيخ فايد عبد الله الخليفه، ودكتور احمد ناصر، اللي راح يقدمون لنا اوراق. وكذلك في الاسابيع الثلاث القادمه، حيث نرى عده اوراق كل اسبوع، كل يوم احد في نفس الوقت راح نشوف مواضيع مختلفه في الذكاء الاصطناعي. عاملين ان نقدم صورة أخرى من تنوع والذكاء الاصطناعي في ظل الأوقات الصعبة، وراح نشوف شلون نقدر نستوجب الظروف من خلال التحول الرقمي اللي احنا مميزين فيها في مملكة البحرين. اسمحوا لي بكلمتين بالإنجليزي للأخوة. Welcome, dear ladies and gentlemen, to First AI conference. I would like to thank our moderator, Khaled, and speakers today who will be introduced by him. I'd like to thank our partners here, GC, who have been supporting AI initiatives in the kingdom for the past 4 years. But nevertheless, His Excellency Ali Saleh al-Saleh is godfather of AI in the kingdom. He has been supporting us in various conferences, and appreciate his wisdom words today, and hope to see you all soon, every Sunday, same time, in the next 3 weeks. Enjoy the sessions. I will leave you for the first speaker introduction, my Khalid.
Thank you, Dr. Jason, for your kind address. Now it's time to hear from our esteemed speakers. Our first speaker will be speaking today about the role of AI in shaping the healthcare post-COVID-19. He is a master's degree holder in software engineering from George Washington University. He is in healthcare industry, of course, heading the IT segment for past 20 years. He has worked for the famous healthcare industries in Bahrain, including the King Hamad University and the Royal Medical Services. Currently, Sheikh Khalid is appointed as the project director to supervise the health transformation program in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Please welcome Sheikh Khalid to start his presentation. Sheikh Khalid, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Khalid, for this wonderful introduction, and I welcome everybody to this BotTalk. I think that starting with healthcare is certainly appropriate in this case, given the circumstances. I'll be talking today about the role of artificial intelligence in shaping healthcare post-COVID-19. I think that before I start, COVID-19 might stay here for a while. We're not really sure when COVID-19 will end. So by saying post-COVID-19 here, we can understand that we either accommodate ourselves and live with COVID-19, or prepare ourselves for second waves or new viruses coming in the future. So I think what I mean by post-COVID-19 and shaping healthcare is making healthcare ready for such a scenario, which is very likely, or hopefully not, doesn't happen, but something that we cannot really jeopardize given the impact we have seen during this pandemic. And here AI plays a very important role. So I'll just start by giving a quick recap on COVID-19. So most of us now are experts in public health. So we are very familiar with these terms: social distancing, self-quarantine, contact tracing, among others that we are familiar, that are, let's say, related to the pandemic. So this is actually what defines our pandemic here, is that we need to be accustomed and let's say ready for such a scenario where we have social distancing, we have self-quarantine. This is the let's say the characteristics of the current pandemic that we have learned so far. So jumping immediately into AI and what AI has been, let's say, utilized in COVID-19 as a background before I jump into the post-COVID. So this is just a website from the Council of Europe. It is actually summarizing the various applications, AI applications utilized in the various countries around the world. And if you can refer to the legend, you can see that the majority or the biggest application is contact tracing, as compared to other very also important applications, such as the self-diagnostic, quarantine enforcement, informative or alerting apps. So AI has been very extensively used. I am sure a lot of the audience are really aware of some of those examples that are out there and have been used. In Bahrain, we are accustomed with the Be Aware application that has been deployed. And from this website, which I screenshot last week, there's a 6.37 installation rate amongst Androids. And the website details the various applications and their origins, as well as the technical information related to that. So I will not really talk about AI in COVID-19. I will move post-COVID-19. So as we jump, let's look at healthcare as a sector. So when we talk about healthcare, there are really three main priorities when it comes to healthcare. And outcomes or quality of care comes at the top. So really that's the main focus of the healthcare system, is to realize the outcome or the quality of outcome of the services that are provided. The second priority is the access to care, and really how accessible is a service to the patient. Let's say, how is it accessible to get an MRI, to see a doctor? What's the ratio of patients to doctors, etc. So this is another priority in healthcare that comes into the top of healthcare system. And certainly the most challenging one is the management of cost and the spiraling costs of healthcare. And what you notice here within the triangle is that these priorities kind of conflict with each other. So if you try to focus on improving the quality, unfortunately, this has a limitation on reducing the access. So if I try to, let's say, reduce the load on a doctor, I'm actually reducing the accessibility, as well as the cost, again, is another factor that is going up. So these priorities are conflicting. And the best way actually to break this chain is artificial intelligence or digitization in general, but certainly artificial intelligence has the power to really accelerate improving all these healthcare priorities. So let's look at the new normal for healthcare and how AI will be shaping this new normal. So the first thing to realize is that once the COVID-19 started, the first thing that happened in hospitals was to tell to the patients, don't come to the hospital. And especially elective or unnecessary visits have been suspended. And this is what we call healthcare being pushed to the edge. So now the trend for healthcare is actually to move out of the hospital and to utilize the ability to provide care at the extremities. That would reduce a lot of things such as cost, improve the hygiene, and provide higher accessibility, and if done properly, can also improve the quality of care. We've seen the utilization of e-consultations, but this is just opening the lid of what can be provided at the edge. And I'll be going into a few examples in the next few slides about healthcare at the edge and opening the boundaries. The second area of AI is actually the data analytics that comes into improving the quality and outcome. As we provide more data, as we provide more learning to our artificial intelligence solutions, we will be able to enhance quality and outcomes through the analytics. And again, more examples will be given in the coming slides. The third one is providing artificial intelligence across the delivery care from the start of the journey of the patient until he is discharged or he continues his care at home. So artificial intelligence does not come into just one place of the healthcare spectrum or the healthcare path. The artificial intelligence can actually play a role in almost every step. Finally, AI has a major influence in the patient experience and how a patient can improve his exposure to the healthcare system. Let's jump into the examples to make some of these points a little bit clear. So as you are aware, a lot of the airports, facilities such as stadiums, malls, and etc. are closed due to the unavailability of mass screening. So really, if we want to move on with the current situation, mass screening technology plays an important role in providing the detection necessary to open up all of these facilities without really jeopardizing the community as much as if we just open without any kind of screening solution. And the technology that is currently provided actually has different applications, and certainly temperature monitoring, as well as adhering with the let's say guidelines that are provided, such as wearing, identifying people with masks, finding people who are breaching the distancing, the social distancing protocols, as well as identifying people with depression. So this is something that many people are not realizing now, but this is something that through mass screening we can actually identify people who are actually going through depression and try to address the early prevention of such cases as that can be actually have substantial improvement if detected early. I will jump into one research that I found really interesting, and really the detection tool that will be most important going forward is actually the phone. So the research that has been done in Carnegie Mellon with the team of Dr. Rita Singh is actually a research on developing a cough analyzing application, and this application will be able to give an indication of the category of the cough by looking at or analyzing the spectrogram. And this is the image that you can see on your on the right hand on the right side of the screen. If you see the 4 boxes, box A actually represents a healthy patient, and you can clearly see the yellow dots at the end of each cough showing a clear what's called a vocal fold. And this really identifies a clear cough of a healthy patient. The second image, which is image B here, is a patient with allergy. And what identifies this clearly is a decreasing strength in the cough. And reducing the strength can be seen in the various 4 strings that are in front of us. Image C at the bottom is what is called a wet cough. And what identifies this is the energy spread across the whole cough, as well as at the end in the green dot, what's called a sharp intake of breath. So this identifies the wet cough, and finally what we call a dry cough. And we all came to know that this is one of the COVID-19 symptoms, actually has a few distinct features, such as a diffused energy and an unusual oscillation showed by the red arrow at the lower frequency that can be seen in the middle of the spectrogram D. This is caused by a respiratory distress of the patient. So as I said, I mean, the full article is available, and you can further read into this interesting research that has been done. But what is important here is to realize the power that we can have by having the application at the mobile and having mass screening of patients with easy access. So this is let's say the future of screening. But the main challenge here is actually obtaining the large database that will allow us to actually say that this application has been tested properly in order to, let's say, avoid any kind of anomalies that can happen. A quick example of anomalies: I was watching a football match last week, and they were using an AI technology for looking at whether the ball crossed the line or not. And in this case, the ball actually crossed the line. However, the artificial intelligence tool, which was a watch with the referee, did not give a signal that the ball crossed the line. So the next day, the company has actually apologized to the fans of the other football, to the football club, stating that they have used this technology in 9,000 games. However, this specific way that the ball has crossed the line has never been, let's say, realized or tested. So this is where the ethics, and we will go into the last slide, I'll touch about that, but this is just an example of how healthcare does not allow for such anomaly or, let's say, errors as compared to a football match, which is not as serious as healthcare. So jumping to a second example is telemonitoring. And here, Dr. Mesko, who calls himself the medical futurist, calls artificial intelligence as the stethoscope of the 21st century. And actually the product on the right side, which is a Stethomy, it's called Stethomy, is actually a artificial intelligence stethoscope that can be used at home. And this stethoscope would send the information to be analyzed in the cloud, sending a response to the patients of the urgency of seeing a doctor, and at the same time sending the information to the physician for his own analysis. Again, telemonitoring, remote monitoring solutions are serving healthcare at the edge, avoiding sending the patient to the hospitals and congesting hospitals without really needing that urgency of attending to the hospital. So this technology, and this is just one example, and there are many areas that really telemonitoring or remote monitoring can really help, such as we mentioned, mental health, as the various therapies, chronic diseases. So there's a lot of applications, and if you really go and search the number of applications or devices that have been developed using artificial intelligence, there are really numerous ones that need to be standardized and used going forward. Finally, my third example here, and my last example also, it's definitely the bots. Since we are in bot talks today, chatbots plays an important role going forward in healthcare. It's well documented how the COVID-19 help desk across the globe, all of them have been congested with calls, and in this case, imagine not responding to patients. It's really, let's say, tiring. It's painful for the patient that he doesn't get a response, or he's really worried that he can be positive and he's transmitting that the virus. So many countries have used bots to really be either informative or actually do a lot of the initial triaging of the patient. But there are many other applications also that chatbots can play in healthcare going forward, and definitely playing a role in reducing the costs of healthcare going forward, such as listed here: patient education, checking symptoms, providing mental health assistance, engaging patient in their healthcare. And this is another area that is really important in healthcare going forward, is the involvement of the patient in providing information into whether it's an artificial intelligence solution or a unified record that can be utilized by the physician as an assisting tool in providing the healthcare for the patient. Finally, my last slide as I approach my time is really looking at the opportunities and challenges going ahead. So COVID-19 has really provided a number of opportunities for artificial intelligence, and this is what we really need to capitalize on. And this is what has been also addressed in His Excellency's opening comments, that we are having opportunities that we can really utilize artificial intelligence. And COVID-19 has created some kind of urgency in the drive to adopt AI. So the situation itself really dictates, and it's really a wave that we need to jump on and try to adopt artificial intelligence, so we are prepared for the post COVID-19 situation and avoid similar relapses or let's say impact in the future. The second one is really clear. I think there's a positive attitude to adopting technology, digitization, being involved. People now really go out and read and really have more understanding about their situation and how their well-being, and they can really contribute by noting significant symptoms and parts of their lifestyle that can be utilized by physicians. My third point is the potential in supporting the care of for the growing population of elderly and chronic ill diseases. As we know, this part of the population is an increasing part that really provides a bigger audience for the artificial intelligence solutions that require AI in healthcare. Providing care closer to home, as we have detailed in this presentation or talk, going through early prevention and detection and the importance of that. Finally, providing intelligence and knowledge-driven operation in healthcare. So these are some of the opportunities. I think there are many opportunities out there. However, the challenges out there are also clear, and there are, as we mentioned, it's a cultural challenge that we need to really break and try to change the landscape of healthcare. Incorporate AI in the training of physicians going forward in order to ease the adoption coming back. Providing a technical infrastructure that is ready to provide AI with the necessary data that will allow it to grow. And finally, resolving the ethical issues and providing the acceptable level of evidence that physicians really need going forward. And again, I think that hand in hand, physicians with and caregivers as a whole with AI is the landscape for healthcare going forward and preparing for any future pandemic or moving from the current pandemic. Thank you all for listening. I hope I have contributed a little bit to your outlook of healthcare and AI in combating the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh Khalid, for the very informative presentation and the knowledge you have shared with all of us today. I'm sure there are a lot of questions which will come to you, but we'll take all the questions at the end of all the presentations you have today. Now, let me introduce our second speaker. The second speaker of today will be sharing her experience on smart, sustainable urbanism. She's young, but very talented personality. She holds a PhD degree, and she's a researcher in the same field she's going to talk about today. She's so passionate about the topic she's going to present today that she has set up a lab in the University of Bahrain where she is a professor. She's the director of the e-learning center at the Bahrain University as well, and she's very passionate about this topic. So with that, I invite Dr. Fai to tell us what is smart, sustainable urbanism. Let's benefit from your knowledge. All yours.
Thank you, Khalid, for your kind introduction. Just going to share my slides with you all today. I'd like to welcome the attendees today, and I'll draw on His Excellency's presentation and speech at the beginning when he said today's challenges are tomorrow's opportunities, and I'd like to present to you today what tomorrow's opportunities in urbanism are in relation to artificial intelligence. Sheikh Khalid has introduced us to the applications of artificial intelligence in the health sector, and it is very interesting for me in his speech when he drew conclusions on how COVID-19 impacted our physical shared space, and we need less of our physical space today than we need of our virtual space. So this is one of the impacts that we have on COVID-19 on our urbanism. Now, I'm not going to focus on COVID-19, rather I'm going to draw conclusions on smart sustainable urbanism in general, and the use of artificial intelligence in the built environment. So throughout my presentation, I'm going to introduce the definition of what smart sustainable urbanism is, and the new approaches to this definition, how we can use AI to enhance our urban sustainability, and what are the latest updates in the literature in that field, and who are the pioneers in the industry and knowledge. I'm going to also draw some attention to the procedures, assessments, and techniques that we use to not only define sustainability in relation to smartness, but also to measure it, and the applications of using artificial intelligence in the built environment. I'm going to also talk about the governmental requirements, procedures, and laws in that sense, and the future knowledge or where we are heading to. I'm going to talk about 3 research projects that I'm currently working on in the Smart Sustainable Urbanism Lab in UOB. So smart sustainable urbanism is related to cities and the life in cities, and as an integrated and holistic approach to urbanism. I'm just going to minimize this. I don't know if you see this as part of my screen. Represent an instance of sustainable urban planning and development, and strategically looking at how we can achieve urban sustainability or sustainable urban development with the support of technologies and their novel applications. Now, smart sustainable urbanism has been redefined to include more than the human aspect of it. So we used to look at sustainable urbanism to be the life in cities and downtown areas, and how can we embed technology to make sure that we optimize our sustainability in that sense. But since debates in landscape architecture accelerated in that topic, we started to think about the more than human aspect of that. So it has been redefined as an urban locality functioning as a healthy system of systems with sustainable and balanced practices of economic, social, environmental governance activities, generating desired outcomes and futures for both humans and non-humans. That means we're both including also the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, and that has came from the attention to having green corridors and animal corridors within downtown areas to make sure that we have a true representation of what sustainable urban environments should look like. Now, there are plenty of publications on the topic, and if you follow what has been recently been published about the relationship between smartness and sustainability, all of these books that I'm presenting to you here on the screen are published in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years. There's even now a journal about this, the Smart and Sustainable Built Environment Journal, that publishes research regularly on the topic of this relationship between smartness and sustainability in our built environment. Now, as you can see from all of those publications, that the relationship between artificial intelligence and urban planning is becoming a hot topic in discussion in the tech world, especially after the publication of a very inspiring study by Stanford University, which is this one, Artificial Intelligence Alive in 2030. I really advise everyone who's interested in the topic of artificial intelligence and how it impacts our life in cities to go ahead and read this. It's a 100-year study. They say the overreaching purpose of the 100-year study periodic expert review is to provide collective and connected set of reflections about AI and its influences as the field advances. So they focus on different parts of the community and the city and the life in cities, like the health sector, the building sector, and so on. Now, interestingly enough, if we look into research that has been published in 1990, and I'm giving you an example of that, an article that was titled Intelligent Urban Information Systems Review and Prospects. And then we look at one that has been published in 2020, Cities of the Future, the Potential Impact of Artificial Intelligence. There's a 30 years gap between the two publications. And what we used to think about the use of technology in relationship to urban planning is this, that it is the use of data in urban planning is less significant because the data that is being used is not really well presented for computer processing. While as if we look at the 2020 published article, we find in recent publications the following: the future form and function of cities. We propose that the future of cities is far from being a determined one, and cities may evolve into ghost towns if the deployment of AI is not carefully controlled. So there's a real concern over the future of cities. So you can see the difference between the two publications and how much we have really advanced from 30 years ago, where we were not really sure about how to use data and artificial intelligence in the urban planning sector, to today, where we are already overly using it, and we're thinking about governing it, and we're thinking about producing policies and procedures into its deployment. Now, there's a growing body of research on the topic, and if we look into it, we find that it really talks about the area of devices that we can use to interconnect our information systems, our applications, our buildings, our vehicles, cameras, and other things to produce really well sustainable urbanism that is governed by the advances in technology. And research really falls within one of these four areas: either land use and planning, which is the use of AI and how to determine land use, and really look into how can we govern the production of zoning into our planning systems; or sensing, the idea of responsive cities using sensors to collect data from the urban environment and then feed it into data banks that we can drive in information from; smart buildings, how can AI unlock the potential of smart buildings; and BIM technologies, which is building information modeling systems, which is more into the design and construction of the buildings, and how can we use AI to replace the paper-based worlds in that sense. There are many pioneers in AI in the built environment now, and I'd like to just draw attention to two of them. One is more related to planning, and the other is more related to mobility. One of them is Sidewalk Labs, a very interesting enterprise. They are looking into how can they use AI and machine learning to make neighborhood design smoother. So they say, this is one of their sayings, which I find very interesting: we believe that when you put technologists and urbanists on the same team, you have the potential to transform the urban environment. And this is exactly what we're doing in the SSU lab. So we're trying to collaborate with the College of IT and with technologists to come up with urban solutions that would enable us to have a more sustainable and smarter urban environment. So they're using systems like this, where they can feed in parameters and restrictions to them to be able to mutate their original design into 100 or thousands of other potentials that they can then study and look into and comment on. The second one is Drive AI. This comes from Stanford University as well, the same university that produced the research I presented at the beginning. And this is from their artificial intelligence lab, and they're looking into, or they're working on kits that they retrofit to enable them to have a 360 degrees perspective of the car environment so that they can enable autonomous cars. So again, talking about mobility and artificial intelligence in this world. The company was just Apple just bought the company for quite some good sum of money. Now we're looking into the procedures, assessments, and techniques. How can we measure smart sustainability now that we know what it is? We need to know how to benchmark it, how to measure it, what are the KPIs, and so on. The applications of using AI in the built environment, and what are the governmental requirements, procedures, and laws. Now, setting performance indicators has been proven to be the best method to drive smart sustainable urbanism in communities around the world. There are today hundreds of various frameworks that we can choose from. I personally prefer to work with the ISO standards, but there are plenty of others as well available. And I think every community should benchmark on its preferred benchmarking criteria or indicators or frameworks based on its available resources, size, population, stakeholders involved, and so on. The indicators should provide simple and measurable evidence that experts can use or different stakeholders can use in the community to produce sustainable communities and smart communities, and then also maintain them and monitor them. But choosing the appropriate set of sustainability indicators is a very, very difficult task and needs quite some involvement from different stakeholders in the market. Measuring sustainable urbanism, you can use one of these three tools. And in my research, we're focusing on performance assessment tools, but there are two others. So there are explanatory tools that you can use to translate concepts into practical terminologies. These are when you have strategies like Bahrain 2030, for instance, and then you want to explain those visions into actionable figures, you use explanatory tools. The pilot tools that aim at evaluating this policy making process. So when we are setting our vision, how can we really see whether our vision is going to the right direction or not? We use the pilot tools. And then performance assessment tools, which means we have already implemented the strategy and we now need to look into what are the indicators and what are the KPIs and whether we are really efficiently doing things correctly or not. Coming into the applications of AI in the built environment, I'm going to talk about the application in two sectors, the urban management sector and the real estate sector. In urban management, we can use it for transportation and traffic, public transportation optimization. We can use it for air quality monitoring and management. We can use it for public safety surveillance and determining if roads are safe for vulnerable groups, for instance. We can use it for water, energy, and waste optimization and monitoring. Monitoring, I would say, more than optimization. And then we can use it for design and planning, like I have also mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, to detect the possibilities of different plans and benchmarking to international solutions. There are plenty of uses already implemented in the real estate sector as well, design and build, as I've talked about. Also buying and selling, AI can help automate that process of buying and selling. Decisions by providing interface can generate predictive and actionable insights, like the websites that we can see around the world now, like property websites around the world. They use artificial intelligence to generate insights about buying and selling. Operation and maintenance is a growing field of research now to help automate and standardize maintenance, inspection, leasing, workflow processes in terms of operating and maintenance, and then optimization as well, looking into how can we measure, track, and identify patterns of usage of certain spaces, and how can we better utilize spaces than others, or our usage of energy or waste. Now, all of those applications have also another side to them, which is the aftermath of using artificial intelligence. If we look into the usage of the or the consequences of the usage of AI in the built environment, it's quite lower than other sectors like the manufacturing. The graph that I'm presenting to you here today is the potential job losses in key industrial sectors because of the implementation of artificial intelligence. And whereas in manufacturing, there's about more than 90% job loss is anticipated in the future, in the construction sector is about 40% or less, in real estate about 12%. So there's not much effect on loss of jobs in the built environment. So this research is now focusing on how to better optimize the use of artificial intelligence. Now, all of this needs to be guided by procedures, laws, and regulations. Nevertheless, if you look into the literature again, Andrew McPhee in his book, The Second Machine Age, mentions that it is way too early for explicit AI policy to be set in place. Also, CEO of Google DeepMind, I think it's too much or too early for to think about regulation. So the research is now moving towards, okay, let's hold on the regulation part and laws and policy making, and let's focus on the implementation part. How can we use the technology before we start governing it? Now, the developed world countries also came together, 42 countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, to set principles reflecting the use of one of the most powerful emerging technologies, which is AI. And then again, the policies that are coming are all also guarding the use of the technology in the best efficient way, in a way that doesn't hinder its progress in the world. So this is one of the latest guidelines by the United States, published early 2019. And if you read the highlighted here, issue, which is basically a guideline to all councils, to issue a memorandum that provide guidance to all federal agencies to inform the development of regulatory and non-regulatory approaches regarding technologies and industrial sectors that are empowered or enabled by artificial intelligence, and consider ways to reduce barriers to the development and adoption of AI technologies. So we're moving towards the implementation rather than really suffocating it with a lot of guidelines and procedures. Lastly, I'd like to speak about a number of projects that we are carrying out as part of the SSU locally in relation to the application of artificial intelligence in the built environment. So we're looking into AI in building permits. This is a big project that now we have with the SLRB and the Ministry of Works, Municipalities and Urban Planning to look into how can we better use artificial intelligence for the issuance of building permits in Bahrain. So we have a two-phased project, a large one that we are trying to conduct now to test whether we can embed deep learning and artificial intelligence to replace the human aspect of building permits applications and make it a more of an automated system. Another project that we're working on is SSU indicators, smart sustainable urbanism indicators. We don't know yet, we don't have a definition of what smart sustainability means for Bahrain, or what are the indicators that we should use, or what are the key performance indicators that we should utilize to benchmark our progress or to monitor our progress. So we're trying to set up that now using the ISO standards. And we're also looking into the implementation of AI for sick building syndrome. So we're looking into the use of technology to aid us in analyzing digital facades like Viva skyscraper, for instance, on the highway, and looking at the impact of that on the participants' health, on the passers-by's health. Although we can use AI to detect those patterns. We're using it also to look into trypophobia, which is the fear of clusters of holes in our built environment, stigmatism, migraines as well, and all of that in relationship to artificial intelligence. So I'd like to end with this quote: a smart city is a city where humans, trees, birds, and other animals can grow with all their glories, imperfections, freedom, and creativity. They are not just cities of technology, but cities of love, life, beauty, dignity, freedom, and equity. And this brings us back to the first definition, or the second definition of smart sustainable urbanism that I have introduced at the beginning of the presentation, the more than human aspect to it, and that we should also think about all of the other creatures that are living with us in one big habitat. So that's all for my presentation. Please feel free to capture my details if you're if you'd like to collaborate for future work. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Khalid.
Thank you, Dr. Fai. It's really eye-opening presentation, and I was a bit worried about myself when I look at the statistics where you mentioned that 90% of the manufacturing job will be out. I was worried, where will I go? But let's find a way to stay in the job. Thank you very much, Doctor. Now it's time to invite our third speaker. Our third speaker is very eagerly waiting since the start of this session to revolutionize the HR with IT. Our third speaker, Dr. Ahmed Nasser, he is a PhD in engineering management from George Washington University. He is Assistant Secretary General HR Finance IT at Shura Council Bahrain. And as a hobby of teaching and sharing information and knowledge, he's also taken a part-time role as assistant professor at the Ahliya University in Bahrain. Dr. Ahmed, let's revolutionize the HR, and the floor is all yours. Dr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Khalid. And I really would like to thank my colleagues, Sheikh Khalid and Sheikh Afai, for a wonderful presentations on two different topics, however, highly related. I also would like to welcome our audience. When it comes to human resources department in any organization, basically there are so many worries, especially from the side of the HR professionals. And it has always been thought that HR is always lagging. It's always one step behind when it comes to the area of digital transformation. However, I think and strongly believe that artificial intelligence basically can offer a chance to catch up, a chance for HR to catch up. In fact, nowadays, artificial intelligence basically make real-time decision using the available algorithm and the efficient computing facilities. Basically, artificial intelligence may have positive impact on several dimensions of the organizations. Basically, for instance, it can help understand, it can help businesses understand their target markets and also promote result-oriented sales strategies or marketing strategy and so on. Basically, when it comes to HR professionals, there are two major concerns. There are lots of concerns, many concerns basically, but among those concerns, two major concerns. They argue basically that algorithm can never replace human empathy, and also algorithm can never replace human or can never replace intuition. Probably those doubts or those concerns are debatable, right? HR professionals also have many doubts as of what could artificial intelligence, what could it bring along to the table? What's new is it gonna present? In reality, it is dictating that man, the combination of man and machines, can bring about miracles when it comes to the transformation process of the workplace in general at large, and the Department of Human Resources in specific. And that's exactly what we are experiencing in the time of COVID, in the time of Corona, right? Nowadays, in fact, many studies, almost showed almost 63% of organizations globally are thinking, or basically are rethinking, the roles of the HR departments in their organization. AI surely, as far as I am concerned, and as far as many organizations are concerned, the game, maybe AI, artificial intelligence, will be the game changer when it comes to the future of the HR. Now, reality says that basically algorithms would really, nowadays, algorithms train themselves to simulate human behavior and to reimagine workers' experience. Now, if artificial intelligence may do this, so AI can help in many ways when it comes to the organization. It may help in eliminating repetitive tasks, basically allowing more room for HR professionals to do more creative tasks, let me say, and more strategic issues. And another issue is it will surely help accelerate the search for talent, which is a major concern for organization. It will also reduce employees' attrition, and it will surely improve employees' engagement. Now, let's look at, let me say, cognitive supporting decision making is one way that artificial intelligence may help. Let me say, for example, vacation requests determination, or determining how your mood is, and training, and many other issues that probably are going to, that are basically more into repetition and repetitive in nature. For example, I'm not going to go through all of these, but for example, when you talk about vacation requests, chatbots may be, artificial intelligence may be deployed to help basically employees to schedule their vacation and the proper time, and the time that has not been allocated for other employees, right? Automation for repetitive tasks, basically it is one of the major contribution that artificial intelligence would bring to the organization. Along with this, HR teams probably are going to be, again, be more free to do much important jobs than repetitive work. It basically, the artificial intelligence and the available big data and big data science, along with the proper information technology infrastructure, will surely help organizations to remove biases in many ways. You know, HR, especially as HR personnel, sometimes do not realize that they are allowing personal biases to creep into the whole issue of hiring process. After all, I'm not saying no one is perfect. After all, we are human beings, and this may happen. On the other hand, artificial intelligence basically can work on disregarding information regarding maybe candidate's age or gender or race or whatever it is. It also does not start with any biases for or against specific geographic areas, universities attended, or organizational affiliation. In terms of talent acquisition, basically, we are looking at AI today can scan, can evaluate applicants. It also allows recruiters to spend more time evaluating only a smaller group of eligible candidates and higher quality of better quality of hiring decisions are made. Artificial intelligence, basically in terms of recruitment, can significantly improve candidate engagement through improved communication between candidates and employers. In terms of training, basically AI can successfully plan, organize, and coordinate training programs for all employees and provide suitable outline courses and digital classrooms. Basically, AI, artificial intelligence, can host, verify, and track compliances and development training more effectively. Workplace learning should be an ongoing priority for every company, but few do have the resources to manage kind of in-house training. Here, artificial intelligence learning offers a module at the employees level and the timetable for self-driven learning and maybe efficient tracking. In terms of staff retention, basically, artificial intelligence can analyze and predict the needs for employees. More room to HR to take proactive steps and solve major problems related to work and related to employees. Examples from the industry, successful basically examples from the industry. IBM basically uses What's On application, and AI Sense basically developed what's called ambient voice intelligence. And basically that's it for me. Thank you so much. To you, Khalid.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for the lovely knowledge you have shared about the AI in HR segment. Now we have reached the end of our 3 presentations. Now it's time to take questions from our audience. We have quite a good number of questions received from the audience. So I'll request all our speakers to please turn on your cameras. And let's take the questions one by one from the audience received. Okay, the first question is for Dr. Fayal Khalifa. The question for you, Doctor, is one of the audience is asked, how can we ensure security and personal data protection when practically implementing smart urbanism?
Right. So I'm not the expert person in security to answer these questions. It's mostly my colleagues in IT disciplines that could answer this question. We're mainly concerned about the implementation of technology in the urban environment is what we're looking at. all what I can say is in the literature, there's really not much attention towards that right now in the built environment sector, I would say. Because as I said in the presentation, the focus on finding ways to implement technology in our urban environment rather than to try and suffocate it now with a lot of laws and procedures and guidelines on how to use it. I understand that there is a lot of public concern on that issue, and Sheikh Khalid presented here the Bahraini application that the now government is encouraging the public to download in their mobile phones, and there's a bit of concern on the security issues, in addition to all of the other platforms that are available. For instance, e-learning platforms that now we are using. Also, faculty and students are concerned about security of their data online and so on. But I would say that we are a bit behind in security laws and procedures that are governing the situation. Maybe Sheikh Khalid would want to add anything about that as well.
If you want to add something to what Dr. Bai has just said?
Okay, sorry, I was muted, so finally I'm allowed to speak. Yes, I think the security aspect is definitely an issue in this case. What is very important to realize in the application that was deployed in COVID, the speed and let's say the importance of rolling out this application in a timely manner plays a role in really looking at the security aspect of it. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that security does not need to be reviewed, and it's an issue that really needs to be addressed and can be talked about thoroughly. But I think that you know, it requires a little bit of details in terms of explaining the breadth of security. And I hope one of our speakers in the future weeks can really highlight security as an issue in addressing these AI topic.
Well, we have a specific speaker in AI security that will be the following Sunday on the 5th of July. Thanks for bringing it up.
I just want to add to that the Bahrain has already made a policy on data protection side, and everyone needs to follow it. And very heavy penalties are imposed. So it's better that people follow the guidelines and the rules seriously to avoid any kind of penalties. Our next question is to Dr. Ahmed Nasser. I believe someone has asked, will AI be included in the school curriculum?
Let me just.
I think anyone can answer, but we start with Dr. Ahmed.
Okay. All right. Basically, the idea of having artificial intelligence as part of the curriculum is not something new. I'm not that old, but let me tell you this thing. In fact, in 1994, when I was at George Washington University, in fact, one of the elective courses taught to university students was artificial intelligence. Basically, it was not very deep. It was not very deep into the technical side, rather than it was some kind of an introductory course in artificial intelligence. I will not say that won't be reality. In fact, if you look at the speech of His Majesty the King and the opening session of the National Assembly, basically he emphasized that there is an importance for having artificial intelligence-based community, artificial intelligence-based issues related to legislation, medical or healthcare, and many other things. In reality, this is the way life is going. At least this is my belief, you know. And as I said earlier, AI is the game changer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. There's a question for Sheikh Khalid. Question is, will there be an online WHO with fully interconnection of fast analyzing of situation and implementing measurements?
Khalid, the question is not really clear to me.
The question is, I'll read it once again and I'll try to translate it. The question says, will there be an online WHO with fully interconnection for fast analyzing the situation? I think they're talking about, will there be any fully integrated and online real-time situation or a portal through which we can measure the implementation of the COVID situation?
Okay, let me answer the question this way. Any artificial intelligence solution that is required at this stage needs to be an integrated solution. I think that looking at some of the questions that have been posted earlier by some of the audience, it's very important to realize that AI initiatives in healthcare, they come at 3 levels. So some of these initiatives really need to come at a national level, and some are at a collaborative international level, and some may come at organizational or hospital level. So the example that was asked is probably falls into the national level. And why I distinguish these 3 initiatives is that in some cases, you know, there are not enough number of cases locally to address a solution of an AI magnitude in a country like Bahrain, which is small. Therefore, you need a collaborative initiative that is done internationally with international organizations, with other countries, that we can leverage on the algorithms that they have. The other one is the national initiative for combating, let's say, pandemic, or a genome project like we have in Bahrain, the genome sequencing project that can develop later into an AI project at a national level that can integrate, let's say, both information available, whether it's a medical record or it's a genome sequencing bank that we are compiling. And this national level initiatives really need both legislation, standardizing, in order to be able to really effectively deploy such solutions in the healthcare sector. Saying that, it doesn't mean that we cannot have initiatives at organizational levels. However, I still believe that some of these need to be regulated, licensed, in order to ensure that they comply with security, with, let's say, confidentiality laws available in Bahrain. And I think this, if done in a strategic or put in a strategic framework, can really excel the AI in healthcare sector. I hope I kind of answered the question, because it was not really clear to me.
Thank you, Sheikh Khalid. Someone has posted, I think it's a comment, but he still wants to see everyone's view, where he say the positive side of Corona has brought a lot of things online. Do we all agree to it? And I think we all, in Bahrain at least, we're all going towards online for everything. And we have a lot of examples which you can share in Bahrain. But I think what Corona has done is it made it more visible and fast-tracked a lot of projects which are basically ongoing. That's my view, my answer. If anybody wants to add something to it?
Yes, if I may add something to that, in my role as the e-learning center director at the University of Bahrain, we've seen a massive digital transformation in the university and in the educational sector in general in Bahrain, and moving in each class online. I would say that a lot of things improved, and we couldn't have dreamed of progressing that much in such a very, very short time to put everyone online teaching and studying. But the drawbacks on that, I would say that you cannot put everything online as well. I mean, there are things that have to be, on the side. In the educational sector now, we're facing some problems with physical education, with fields like nursing, for example, where they have to have hands-on experience and training as part of their educational system. So I'd say COVID-19 has really accelerated things in some fields, but we cannot say that we can continue doing that also in the future forever.
Can I add something, Khaled?
Sure, please.
Okay. Basically, let's say this one. When it comes to the legislation process and the Shura Council, basically there was let me call it a historical event that took place, and that was when the Shura Council regular session was held online, where every single member of the Shura Council was at their own convenient place, and the legislative process never stopped. And most of the training that was done in the Shura Council during the past few months were basically online. So it is a reality. Thank you.
Yeah, from my side, I think the last slide in my presentation did have some of those opportunities that COVID-19 has opened up. However, I'd like to go back and thank all the people who are working in combating COVID-19, the frontline out there who are doing a great job since the start of the pandemic. And there are being, behind the scenes, I can see a lot of work that has been put in combating this pandemic, and the change that has come upon us, and the importance of not repeating such an experience, and how I think AI itself is really a tool that can really combat pandemics is really evident in how it has been used, and I think that this is very important to realize and make use of. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh Khalid. Sheikh Khalid, one more question towards you. In your presentation, you did touch upon the chatbots, the importance of chatbots in the healthcare. The question is, there are a lot of chatbots, AI-based chatbots are developed and available in the market. How do you see them integrating with the healthcare systems?
Again, I think this is the chatbots is an important tool, especially for patient education, as an informative tool going forward. Physician time is very valuable, and making sure that these tools are available at the patient's hand whenever he wants. He can go back and let's say refresh his memory about the instructions, about how to deal with what's going on with his case. So from a practical perspective, chatbots do have an important role to play forward. I think this is one of the initiatives that can be addressed at an organizational and at a hospital level, and even at a physician level, because at the end of the day, the physician is really leading the care provided to the patient. So I think this is one of the ones that when I detailed the 3 levels, I think this is something that really can be taken upon by the organization and doctors themselves. Thank you.
Just add to you, Dr. Khalid, Sheikh Khalid, that just not to perceive by the audience that technologies such as chatbot and others are easy to implement and accurate, and perhaps its implementation will revolutionize the sector. Chatbot and others, as I believe you all said it in your presentations, requires rich data in the backend with a huge, complicated algorithm to go with. So implementing a chatbot where it only have half of the answers may have a reversal effect than an actual benefit to them. So the data, that's very important. Analytics behind it is very important, and the guidelines that goes with it. And of course, the machine learning will evolve as we go. I think, Khaled, we reached our deadline. We got 1 minute left, and just leave it to you to introduce next session. But just I want to make one point that today we had 3 different areas. In the next few weeks, we have 10 more different sectors and areas that we will be addressing through AI. Over to you, Khaled.
Thank you. 2 more questions and we are going to conclude. 2 questions are very important. The question is, one of the challenges we face in adopting AI technology depends on the awareness of the users. Very true. How can we increase awareness of AI technology to users? Maybe Dr. Joseph, you can answer that.
I think one thing I just want to highlight to the audience, if you have any more requirements, and I'm sure these questions that we give you are quick, direct to the points, and we have limited times. But if you leave your contacts, we can provide you and the speakers here with more detailed, satisfactory answers, and of course to follow up. The presentation, somebody asked for the presentation, I believe, Khaled, that if any specific presentation is required based on speakers' consents, we may share it. There are no confidential data in them. But the question, sorry, was on the future of the AI and the implementation, correct, Khaled?
Yeah, the awareness of AI to the audience, to the people.
Actually, what we do today, and I want to thank them again and yourself and the future speakers, that are all volunteer speakers that taking part, and they've been taking part since past 3 years in performing many seminars, speeches, white papers to disseminate the information amongst the community. And that's at different levels of the community, not only professionals in technology, but students, private, public sectors, different levels of seniority and jobs, and even parents who would like to guide their children in the future of AI. So I think in Bahrain we have a big chance. The growth is very fast. I believe people in different specializations are taking interest in artificial intelligence, and is very evident. The presence today to listen to us is evidence of that. So we as this group will work continuously. As we said, week in, week out, we will have sessions, more technical details, and I believe we have a chance in Bahrain to be a center of the artificial intelligence and research development in the Middle East. We have the capabilities, etc. So again, as the partners logo comes up, I would like to thank also all our partners and sponsors in that.
Thank you, Dr. Jassim. With that, we have come to end of our Q&A session. Because we have already crossed our allotted time, I'd like to thank all my speakers over here, all the organizers, and the team who are working behind the scene to make sure everything goes well, technology-wise. Thank you, everyone. Thanks all the audience. And if we have the next slide, just want to announce that our next session is going to be in Arabic next week. Have the next slide, please. Yes, our next session will be on 28th June, same time. It will be done in Arabic. So our speakers are going to address this topics in Arabic language. Everyone is welcome to attend. And after this, we'll have another session which will be in English. So you're all welcome to attend all our sessions and share and help us promoting AI in Bahrain, which is a vision of our king as well, and the need of the time. With that, I'd like to thank all of you. Stay safe. God bless you all, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.